We test, validate, prototype, break, destroy, send stuff out the door to make sure it's good to go for the customer. With respect to hydraulics, everything that leaves this door or these doors through the lab gets assembled and tested to its maximum working loads. So it'll be a cylinder, push or pulled statically, not just against itself as you would potentially do in the field, but actually against the mechanical stock. So that when you do have a product delivered to you, you know that every part of that has been loaded to what it will see on the boat, if not more. On the Grand Prix and the America's Cup side, every product gets tested. It has to make sure that it passes our level of scrutiny before we're going to give it to a customer, because these are race, lose, or failures. If that thing shows up and doesn't work, then we've just cost somebody a race and potentially a campaign.
What's very different about these four-lane monohulls is they're constantly adjusting the Traveler. It basically doesn't stop moving, so it puts a lot more wear on it than what we would typically see. So we started out when they started doing the mules before the last Cup, speccing basically what we had normally put on like a Volvo 70 or Volvo 65, and they're wearing through the rollers very quickly. And then we knew we're going to have to put some time into developing something different for a four-lane monohull that was going to have the durability that they wanted, and also they're always pushing to be super efficient.
The trickle-down effect from Grand Prix sailing in the America's Cup into the day racer or weekend racer is very much present. Nobody wants to go slow anymore. Sailing is traditionally a slow-moving sport. Very perfect balance between nature and technology, but technology is pushing its head into that campaign and that element of the sport, and people want to enjoy the speed of it too. Just because we're selling something to an America's Cup or a Grand Prix racing circuit doesn't mean that it gets touched with a different velvet glove. The assembly and validation and the brand is still there, if not stronger. So we need to make sure that everything that may have been developed in the Grand Prix world introduced into the standard sailing market is just as secure, just as validated, performs just as well.
Our Grand Prix blocks used to be totally custom, so you had to go through a sales manager essentially to get them. And when we came up with the new generation going from TTR2 to the V blocks, we decided to make that a production block. So now you can it's much more accessible and we have it on the shelf.
This is the 250,000 pound test bench that we developed. We created this to make sure that as we crept up in loads and as we got into bigger and bigger arenas, we could absolutely with confidence deliver a product that was going to work. We can also do an amazing amount of other things with this test stand. Every cylinder goes into it, whether it's a mega yacht boom vang or a small backstay adjuster or a trim tab of some sort. It'll enter in this particular setup and get validated so that we know that it works, whether it's a prototype-based version or whether it's somebody's new cylinder going on their boat. This test bench is 40 feet long, and we could get approximately a 35-foot vang inside of it and test it. On this end, we developed a relatively permanent residing cylinder that can pull 125,000 pounds and push 125,000 pounds.
I mean, I can say that the testing we do now is much more refined and developed than it has been previously. As you start looking at those smaller and smaller margins, to get more and more efficient, everything just needs to be that much more accurate within the test. Small fractions of a percent, but when your loads are 10 tons, that adds up to a lot of force. And you want everything to be as efficient as possible, because then you can downsize all the components. If your Traveler takes that much less effort to pull, then you can downsize the cylinder or the winch that's pulling on the Traveler. And if you do that all across the boat, you can downsize all the components, and then it becomes a win because then the boat gets lighter. So now there's less load on everything because the whole boat got lighter.
It really makes sure that when somebody decides that they're going to spend their hard-earned money on a Harken product, that they know what they get is going to work. In order to be able to say, we did that already. We tested that. We used that in a case that you're not going to do it and it didn't break. And we drove that design down to its minimum weight or its highest performance or its least amount of friction. We drove that design to its optimal case so that when you decide to spend that money on a Harken product, it's going to work.